Welcome to On Health with Houston Methodist. I'm Zach Moore. I'm a photographer and editor here, and I'm also a longtime podcaster.
I'm Katie McCallum, former researcher turned health writer, mostly writing for our blog.
Katie, how healthy do you think your immune system is?
Me and my sister both jokingly call ourselves lemons every now and then, in terms of I feel like I get sick way easier than most people. And I feel like I'm sick more often than most people.
Okay.
So I would put my immune system at a solid 5, maybe 4.
All right. So middle of the road. It sounds
where
like.
Where are you ranking yours?
Maybe 7.5, 8.
Okay.
I don't feel like I get sick that often.
Yeah.
I do seem to get sick around the same times a year, kind of seasonal changes.
Yeah. Well, there's the seasonal respiratory viruses. So
allergy related. Yeah. I know if I start not getting enough sleep and I start getting worn down, that's what the trigger is for me always.
Yeah.
Of course, things happen. You're going to get sick every now and then. Yeah. But I don't feel like I disproportionately get sick or anything like that.
Yeah, I definitely do. And I feel like I'm kind of pretty healthy, at least these days. I know in my 20s I probably wasn't, but I have a recent example. Twice this year so far, I've gone on trips and come back from trips where I was with someone on the trip who did the exact same thing as me. You know, we were on the same flight. We both, for instance, I was in Vegas in August for a conference. You know, prime time to get sick, right? You're on a plane packed with people. I'm in a conference center packed with people. It's Vegas. There's lots of people everywhere.
They call it the con crud.
What?
It's a technical term. No, if you go to conventions, sickness spreads around. So they call it the con crud.
I'd never heard this.
Yes.
Okay, I fell victim to the con crud, whereas my colleague, our coworker, was totally fine.
Yeah.
I got COVID. She did not. Now, this was during that kind of part of the end of the summer where COVID was higher, the levels were up. And I was like, I'm probably going to come back from this conference sick because, again, I always get sick.
Yeah.
And it happened also earlier this year. I went on a trip. We went to a basketball game in a very busy arena. I came back from the trip with some kind of virus, the flu or something. And the person I was traveling with, totally fine.
What have you done? You've noticed this pattern in your life, it sounds like. Have you tried to prevent it and have your attempts failed, or have you, where are you on that?
So I'm trying to do this podcast to get my
That's
answer.
why we're doing this podcast.
I tried to do this podcast, get my answer. No, I mean, I've tried those vitamin C packets that you can as soon as you start feeling that tickle in your throat, you're like, ooh, especially in college. I was like, let me go chug some of these vitamin C packets. I mean, nothing has ever helped me. That's why I jokingly call myself a lemon. I just think I get sick more often than other people. I will say, I don't think I get more sick when I do get sick than other people. I think I just get sick easier.
I follow you.
So it's not like when I've had COVID at least twice, and both times it was not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it wasn't great. It was like a bad flu.
I had it once and it was absolutely awful. But.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't great, but I was no concerns about having to go to the hospital or anything. So I don't get super sick when I'm sick. I just feel like I am more prone to illness. Yeah,
because that would be compromised immune system. That would people have no matter what illness you get, it's going to hit you harder than most people. Right. That's not you. You just have their frequency is higher.
Yeah, and we want to figure out why. Yeah, this episode's all about me. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. I think a lot of people wonder how to boost your immune system. Nobody wants to be sick, and I think there's a ton of stuff out there that claims to improve your immunity or boost your immunity. I think a lot of the question is what actually works, especially for a person who, maybe just thinks they're healthy, but feels like they're getting sick more than often, or this person who just never wants to get sick because they hate being sick. What can we do to keep our immune system healthy?
All right. And who do we talk to about that, Katie?
We talked to Dr. Cesar Arias. He is an infectious disease physician here at Houston Methodist. And we go through all the supplements that maybe claim that they can help you boost your immunity. We talk about how complex the immune system is and how that might tell us something about whether these supplements work and a lot more. Thanks for being with us today, Dr. Arias. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Chief of Infectious Diseases. So it sounds like you are the perfect person for us to be talking to about our immune system and how we can boost immunity.
Well, I hope so. At least from the other side of the infectious disease spectrum, we deal with the consequences.
Right. Gotcha. I think I want to kick off this episode with something I saw recently. In my social media feed, I got an ad. It was advertising a greens powder. I'll just say that. And the text on the ad was, better immunity is just a scoop away, implying that a scoop of this greens powder is what I need to boost my immune system. Can you start by talking to us and our listeners about why that's probably a pretty simplified way of talking about your immune system?
Yeah, I mean, that's not the only product. I think you probably find a vast amount of number of products that claim that boosting the immune system. The immune system is one of the most complex activities in our body. And in reality, the training of the immune system is an evolutionary training we as humans have had since we've been in this earth. And it's mainly developed based on the exposure to the surroundings, both outside of us, but also inside of us. I mean, what is boosting the immune system is absolutely unclear. Most of these products have not undergone rigorous testing and to see exactly what they do. Most of these claim that, you get less colds or less viral infections, etc. But we know that is not true, and there is no evidence for that. A healthy immune system comes to you being healthy. That means being eating right, sleeping well, having a healthy style of living, exercise, and maintaining a good interaction with what we call our microbiome, your own microbiome, which is influenced by many factors.
Gotcha. So I think you kind of have led into my next question. So just to take that a step further, when we say what does a healthy immune system, quote unquote, look like, I think a lot of people might assume that it's like, well, if I'm boosting my immune system or like to your point, what does that mean? But if I am boosting my immune system or trying to, that means like I'm not going to get sick. So, during flu season, I'm less likely to get the flu and stuff like that. So what does a healthy immune system actually look like? Like, what does it mean to have a healthy immune system?
A vaccinated person, I would say that is a good example of a healthy immune system. So there is a reason we vaccinate. So that means you get vaccinated, you get a boost in your immunity against a particular pathogen. And if you do that, that is actually an indication that you are responding, your immune system is responding. For example, if you do this, the same vaccination in a patient who is undergoing chemotherapy for cancer, the response is not going to be the same because that immune system of that person is totally down because of the chemotherapy and all that. I come back to my previous comments that a healthy immune system means a healthy life, that your organism is healthy in terms of what you eat, how you behave, what kind of toxins you put in your body, and how you sleep and how much you exercise. That is a healthy style of living that is going to be hand to hand with a healthy immune system.
Gotcha. And I mean, would you say it's fair to say that even if you're doing all that, like you might still get sick, but perhaps it'll be less sick than if you had a horrible diet, you're not really taking care of your body very well. Is there a correlation there at all?
So absolutely. Let's put the example in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who is reasonably healthy probably got COVID one way or another.
It found everyone, I think, eventually.
Correct. But certain people got it really bad because in some ways the immune system reacted a lot. For example, in a viral infection, the inflammation gets out of control. How that is regulated is very difficult to predict, but depends on many factors. So people with diabetes, people with obesity, people for certain conditions are more predisposed to go in that route than maybe a healthier person. But it's difficult to predict. So I saw very healthy people, marathon runners, getting eventually to the ICU during the COVID pandemic. So it's very unclear to predict because each individual we're very unique, and how our immune system is going to respond to particular challenges.
Gotcha.
So I don't think there is a one size fits all.
Yeah. I guess it gets back to what you mentioned. It's such a complex, system in our bodies. I want to touch on one thing you said because I wanted to ask this, and I think you're already kind of alluding to it. Sometimes I wonder, like I have some friends that never get sick. Like literally almost never get sick. And then I kind of feel like I call myself a lemon sometimes because like I feel like I get sick easily. But I also like kind of feel like I'm pretty healthy. So are there do we know any other factors of why there are just some people who like rarely get sick and some just get sick more often? Or is it too complex to talk about? Anything else there?
No, one very important part of the science of immunology and infectious diseases is to try to find genetic predisposition to certain diseases.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we do not understand very well yet. There's definitely certain people that has certain mutation in particular genes that seem to predispose that particular individual to certain diseases, either bacterial, fungal, viral, etc. Right? The details of all that and how that is sometimes very difficult because in order to really pinpoint the particular mutation, you will need thousands of millions of people to do sort of a genetic study that gives enough power to do that. But definitely, there is certain genetic predisposition to certain infectious diseases, and it's unclear what particular virus or bugs you will be predisposed. I always say to people, getting sick is not bad because that means you are developed some sort of immunity to it. Of course, you don't want to be in the hospital, but we've seen with COVID, for example, with the variants that people have multiple episodes of this with the flu, and this is the natural way to live it in this earth, and having new pathogens emerging in around us.
I know we talked about this at the top, but I wanted to dig in on a couple of the supplements that I think people think of most when they think of, boosting your immune system. Vitamin C, whether it's through maybe like a packet of vitamin C or just like, I'm going to try to get more vitamin C in my diet. Is there any evidence whatsoever that vitamin C kind of helps stave off illness?
Yeah, I mean, there has been plenty of studies trying to pinpoint that particular role of vitamin C, which has some role, metabolic role, that is very well identified. To be honest, the jury is still out there if this supplementation really helps. And the problem with that is that you have a healthy diet, you consume enough fruits and a balanced diet. You probably have enough of the vitamin requirements that is needed to maintain a good immune system. Doing extra is sometimes difficult to assess if that extra actually helps anything.
Yeah.
And that's where, it is difficult to measure the studies. Definitely, you don't have it. Definitely, there is a problem and you develop conditions. But if you have enough, is more better? I'm not quite sure.
Along that same line, are there any other vitamins and minerals that aren't talked about enough when we think about a healthy diet and making sure people are getting enough of the vitamins and minerals? Or I guess what I'm asking is, if I'm eating a healthy diet, are there any vitamins and minerals that I do need to perhaps be thinking about or supplementing with to sort of support my immune system, or are they all covered with a healthy diet?
It depends what diet you said. There's more and more evidence now that maybe plant-based diets are possibly healthier for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to emphasize a point is what we call the microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
So all the bugs that reside in your gastrointestinal tract, in your gut, are very important drivers of your immunity since you are born.
Mm-hmm.
And that microbiome is determined by what you eat.
Mm. You are what you eat.
That's exactly what I want to say. You took the words out of me. It's exactly correct.
Okay.
So our Western diet, if you look at it, is high calorie, high processed food that I think has a major influence in how we respond to our immune system response and how eventually leads to disease, cardiovascular, cancer, etc. So the evidence now is that you eat healthier. It doesn't have to be completely vegan, but it definitely lower consumption of animal protein, particularly red meat, more fruits, more fibers, more vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely tend to be associated with a healthier microbiome, a healthier gut, and that influences how you respond specifically. Vegan, for example, individuals, because there's certain of the vitamins come from animal protein, Sometimes they need to take some supplements, particularly vitamin B supplements and some folic acid. But some other grains may have that. And so it's not necessarily a complete requirement, but eventually that will happen. So this is exactly what I was talking about, that you are what you eat, and the kind of things you eat is reflected in your overall healthiness, including your immune system health.
As Dr. Arias has mentioned, a healthy diet isn't all that's needed to support your immune system. Sleep and exercise matter too. According to the CDC, only about a quarter of adults get enough exercise every week, and somewhere between 30 to 50% of adults aren't getting enough sleep. Aim to get around 150 minutes of exercise per week, which shakes out to about 20 minutes per day. If finding time to work out is a challenge for you, try breaking your activity into short bursts throughout the day. Even 5 minutes of movement here and there adds up. As for sleep, aim to get 7 to 9 hours of it per night. This isn't always realistic, but striving to maintain a consistent bedtime can make a huge difference in the long run. If you're prone to late nights, gradually shift your routine back by 15 minutes until you reach your goal.
After the break, we dive deeper into our microbiomes, the complexity of the immune system, and more.
From annual checkups to managing chronic conditions, your healthcare should be personalized to you. At Houston Methodist, our primary care doctors provide customized care for you and your family, with more than 40 convenient locations across Greater Houston. We offer a variety of ways to get care, from in-person and virtual appointments to same-day visits when you're sick. Choose your doctor and schedule online at houstonmethodist.org/stayhealthy. Houston Methodist, leading medicine.
I think the one area I have kind of struggled up until recently with my lifestyle is probably my diet. I would exercise a lot, but then I would kind of eat just not great. And it was never a big deal. As I'm getting older, it's becoming more of a big deal. But then also, as you're talking about it, I guess my question is, how quick can you turn around your microbiome, in the sense of, if all during my 20s, I was eating like hot fries and like sodas and fast food. Now in my 30s, I'm kind of trying the Mediterranean diet style more. Does it take a couple years maybe to turn things around and start kind of benefiting my immunity, or do we know anything there?
It's difficult to predict because there's so many factors. I mean, the sooner you start, the better.
Right.
If you have sustained bad diet, maybe some of the damage that's happened in your arteries is probably not fully reversible. But the way in which you heal those problems may favor if your diet improves.
Gotcha.
I'm a big proponent of a healthy diet to maintain your healthiness as a holistic term. And the sooner you start, the better. When you're young, you can basically, you do many things, but then you pay the price when you get older.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is how we get older in a healthier manner with less utilization of the health system. How can we help our planet at the same time and maintain a very active style of living?
Yeah, I think that's something that like clicked for me probably like mid 30s, especially, or maybe early 30s, was like, man, I think I'm healthy in some ways, and I kind of was, but in other ways I was dramatically kind of unhealthy and sort of ignoring it. But yeah, to your point, I was not ever thinking about maybe some of these smaller impacts, like, well, now I might get more sick than usual, or, those things. It's interesting.
Eating a healthy diet, for example, a very healthy salad is probably more expensive than your favorite hamburger.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think
with your favorite meal that comes with a big can of Coke, an amount that is not necessary, and then your big French fries, which are delicious. I'm not saying they are not.
Yeah.
The nutritional value of that is questionable.
Yeah, not doing our body any favors there. Does the immune system play any role on things like sleep or energy levels and things like that? I ask because, again, getting back to some of these supplements I see, they often try to like put everything all in one bottle. It's like, oh, this helps boost your immunity and sleep and energy. Is there a connection there, or are they just kind of grabbing things?
It's difficult to ascertain those claims. I mean, in very simple terms, our immune system is derived in two big pockets. One that we call innate immunity, so is sort of the first line of defense.
Mhm.
So imagine our immune system is like an army, right? And the first army are, just the innate immunity is just soldiers that go and trying to deal with anything that is thrown to that army. So that's innate. And the other we call adaptive immunity is so we know now the enemy much better. We are going to develop a special immunity or special weapons through that enemy,
Gotcha.
through antibodies, etc. So these two systems are regulated in different manners, and there are very complex interactions between them, right? So when you get vaccinated, for example, that goes eventually to your adaptive immunity to produce those weapons, I call antibodies, against a particular organism. So when you encounter next time, you have these weapons to try to get rid of that agent. But at the same time, our immune system also remembers that and produces another response. So it's a very complex and very fascinating interaction between them. So if you don't sleep well, if you don't eat well, if you ingest beverage in high amounts, that sort of healthy interaction of an immune system is going to be affected.
Okay.
And again, this is hand to hand with what is healthy, what is a healthy living.
Mm-hmm.
You are under periods of stress, you don't sleep, you seem to be much more predisposed to catch common colds. And that's a reflection that, your body's telling you, you need to take it easy. You just need to, change your style of living to be able to be healthier.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, as you're describing it's so complex, the system, but then the ways to support it are pretty simple. I mean, I say simple and that they're simple to list and easy to talk about, but I know there's some of the harder things to do. You already mentioned eating a healthy diet is really tough here in America. It's cheaper to not eat healthy. So I think that's an interesting contrast there. You have this very complex system, but a simple way in reality to kind of quote unquote boost it or support it or just maintain it in a healthy way.
There are other parts of the immune system that we don't think about as part of the immune system that are also important. For example, our skin. Our skin is like the first barrier against bad bugs, right? And the skin is very full of immune soldiers, monitoring. And there's plenty of bacteria there that help that adaptation on the skin. Your skin not working well, or you have cracks or something, that is the portal of entry for many infections, for example. So that's all our mucosas are also very important.
Yeah.
So talking about healthy living, smoking, for example, when you smoke, not only you are inhaling toxins that eventually are going to be bad for your lung, but also destroying all these little cilia, which is little brushes that the immune system has or the epithelium has to repel particles that get into your system to cuff them out and all that. Those are also important part of the immune system that we don't really think about.
Yeah, I had never considered the smoking affecting, like you mentioned, the cilia and stuff. Well, what about drinking as far as like your mouth mucosa? Does alcohol sort of damage your mouth mucosa and make it easier to get sick?
Depends how much you drink.
Okay.
But there's more and more evidence now that even a small amount of alcohol may have deleterious effects in your whole system. Probably not in your mucosa, but your GI tract, and that kind of
the microbiome.
That
maybe?
is going to affect your microbiome.
Okay.
Exactly right. You see.
Okay.
So that's definitely. I mean, I love wine, so I'm not. I'm trying to drink as little as possible, but I will always enjoy a glass of wine, and I think that's part of your mental health that also is going to be good.
Yeah. No, I got you there. You mentioned kind of like mucosa and things like that. It makes me think of Another really bad habit, and perhaps why I get sick more than a lot of people. I bite my nails. So, I mean, is that, I guess when you're talking about skin and sort of it being such a good barrier, and then I know during COVID, the message was like, don't touch your eyes, don't put your hands in your mouth kind of thing. The biting the nails is probably a pretty big, would you say that's a pretty big reason why people might get sick?
It's hard to think about that will actually have any impact. We human beings
Yeah.
tend to pick our body everywhere and
Yeah.
put things in our mouths.
Yeah.
That's something part of being human,
Mhm.
right? I would say if you pick your nails, you probably have more anxiety than most people.
Yes.
And you probably need to think about why you are doing that instead of what you're bringing to your mouth. But yeah, the more...
This is good. Thank you. I probably needed to hear that. Yeah.
The more your hands stay in contact with your mouth, everything that is in your hands eventually is going to get in your mouth.
Mhm.
So, and God knows where your hands are or have been, and that's probably going to end up in your mouth. So there's definitely a correlation. But, we do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to just, the kids do that all the time. And
When
that's
I was
part of the
younger,
process.
I would tell my mom when I was younger, I was like building my immune system because I was just exposing myself to all sorts of stuff.
But, we are in an epidemic or in a pandemic. Trying not to do that is a good way to prevent, direct inoculation of particular pathogen in your airway.
Yeah. I think another interesting thing that you've said, being sick really isn't necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, if you end up in the hospital, like it's not ideal and it's not good, but just your routine kind of like flu, COVID, just cold, it's not necessarily something that we need to go buy a supplement for so we can avoid forever. We're probably, there's probably fallacy throughout that whole kind of concept. So I think this conversation is really helpful.
So, about this, COVID-19 actually has taught a lot about how we react because there have been a lot of studies on this. And one of the studies that is fascinating is that when you get a new infection and you are also vaccinated, you develop what is called this hybrid immunity.
Mm-hmm.
So natural immunity plus the vaccination immunity, and that seems to be highly protective.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, that combination seems to boost your immune system in a way that you seems to have much more protection for the next infection.
Okay, gotcha. Does it boost specifically for that pathogen, or does it kind of just generally boost your immune system?
It's only been studied specifically with the pathogen. That generalizations are very difficult to study.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with as far as, understanding their immune system, how to keep it healthy, how to support it? I think we've really talked about the importance of just a healthy lifestyle, healthy diet. Anything else you want to leave people with?
Yeah, I would say be very careful when you take supplements.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these supplements actually do not undergo rigorous testing or clinical trials. There is a pathway of this labeling that do not require specific approvals, and it's very difficult to know what is in those supplements.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of examples where those supplements have caused really bad disease. So I'm not saying don't do it, but if you do it, make sure you know what you are consuming.
Yeah. Understood. And so, the scoop of greens powder is it's going to boost my immunity. Also like we don't necessarily know what's in there.
Correct.
And it could be. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Arias. This was a really interesting conversation. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, Katie, other than learning that you shouldn't be biting your nails, what else did you take away from our conversation with Dr. Arias?
Yeah. Tiny jab. How long have you been waiting to say that one?
I guess since I heard that you bite your nails all the time.
Yeah. We talked about this in the beginning about how I feel like I'm a lemon. And I think I was kind of looking for some sort of rationale as to like, why me? When in reality, it made me kind of actually think about how healthy I am. And I'm maybe not quite as healthy as I want to say.
That's the conclusion we've come to now. Yeah.
I think you mentioned that like genetics kind of plays a role, but they don't even really understand what role.
See, that was interesting to me. We know enough that we know that, yes, you can be predisposed to certain things, but we can't tell you what those things are, and we can't tell you why you are that way. We just know it's a thing. So, I mean, hopefully, as we can look, medicine, and it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
Medical knowledge is a journey. Hopefully, the longer we go, the more answers we'll get. But I thought it was interesting. Like, okay, there's a disconnect there to me anyway that, well, if you know that these cause these things, shouldn't we be able to identify them better? But we're just not right now. It's one of those mysteries.
Yeah. And even if we don't know, though, I think for me, it made me sort of be like, okay, well, I have no control over that part that's either like a lack of knowledge or something. So even more priority needs to be placed where it should be placed, which is diet, sleep, exercise. As he said it, the toxins you put in your body.
Yeah.
Which,
That'll call you out right there.
I think we all know the most obvious example of that one. I liked what he said because it was very succinct and simple, but he said that a healthy immune system is a healthy life. And I think it sort of pushes back against all these supplements and things. Like we talked about the greens powders that say like, a boost in immunity is just a scoop away. Well, no, it's not. And also what's actually just, a way to support your immunity is things you can do without even paying for a supplement, essentially.
Well, as with most things, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
And so, I can just eat whatever I want and not wash my hands as long as I eat this with scoop or whatever. And that's just, obviously that's not the case. And, he did mention the Mediterranean diet, which yet again, we have experts mentioning the Mediterranean diet. So take that to the bank. But I also like how he made it clear that, look, you don't have to be all vegan or all this or all that. As long as you start to shift in a certain way with your diet, it adds up, right? Little changes here and there. Exercise as well.
Yeah. And in fact, he even said if you're vegan, you might need to take some supplements because you might not be getting enough of the vitamins and minerals that are important for a healthy immune system. Everyone else eating a, quote unquote, healthy diet, which, as we have talked about extensively on this podcast, the Mediterranean diet's an example. You probably have everything you need to support your immune system. And so, that vitamin C packet, there's nothing to say that getting more vitamin C than you need helps you, not get sick. You already have enough, and that's enough. That's the point.
And unfortunately, as he points out, in our Western culture here, right, it's a lot cheaper to eat unhealthy than it is to eat healthy. So we get kind of caught in this cycle where it's like, oh, well, I've been eating unhealthy, and then that might mess up, your immune system as far as, you're not as healthy as you need to be. You're not getting the nutrients you need out of your food. So that does weaken your immune system. So you'd go seek out these other things that you wouldn't have needed if you were eating properly.
And they may not even work anyways. So
right?
They might be
also true.
Yeah. If you have a bad diet and you're relying on all these things to help you fix that problem, it's probably not, you're probably doing yourself a disservice in a number of ways. I enjoyed kind of some of when we delved into the microbiome, we didn't go too far into it and probably could be a really cool future episode.
Well, this is kind of your history, right?
A little bit. So it's funny. The microbiome stuff was, it's really taken off since. It was kind of new. I say new, quote unquote new, when I was in research and stuff. It wasn't new, but in the field of science, it was quote unquote new. So a lot's changed and shifted, and I think there's all sorts of ways that your microbiome affects your body, not just your immune system. There's all these different ways, but I think diet's biggest role being on your microbiome is interesting to think about. And, alcohol, it can really affect your microbiome. And perhaps that's why, your immunity might not be sort of as strong as you want it to be and stuff like that. I don't know. It's when you talk about how complex the immune system is, and then you talk about how your microbiome is playing a role, and that's a whole system that's kind of like not you technically. Those are, bacteria in your gut sort of thing. Like it just goes to show how none of this is easy.
No.
It's not one thing.
No, we have an ecosystem in our body, which is, we don't think about, but
we're home to trillions of microbes. But and then the fact that plays a role in immunity, I think it just further cements this idea that it's more complex than, taking a pill or a scoop of powder in your water and thinking you're never going to get sick, which also I liked that he pointed out that the point is not to never get sick. We're still going to get sick. A healthy immune system can still be a person who gets sick. It's just a natural part of life.
Yeah. And a lot of times you're building immunity through being sick.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of On Health with Houston Methodist. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We drop episodes Tuesday mornings. So until next time, stay tuned and stay healthy.